groups, including the Expert Working Group on Energy Connectivity and the Expert Working Group on Universal Access to Modern Energy Services, Renewable Energy, Energy Efficiency, and the cleaner use of fossil fuel, both of which have engaged in meetings and are developing outputs. Also, as agreed in Resolution 73/8, the second Asian and Pacific Energy Forum was organized on 3rd to 5th April 2018 in Bangkok. Following these ministerial level meetings, in order to better support its meeting states, ESCAP engaged in activities including the development of the National Expert SDG tool for energy planning to help countries develop national roadmap to attain SDG 7, and the study of energy connectivity and development of draft roadmap on energy connectivity. The projects to support evidence-based policy, the further development of the Asia-Pacific Energy Portal, support member states' data needs, and research evaluating electricity access and clean cooking program to help inform evidence-based policy. Lastly, ESCAP has published 4 official documents, 4 publications, and 3 statistical booklets as knowledge products to further support member states to achieving sustainable energy development through regional cooperation. Now, I would like to invite Ms. Amida Alisaja Habana, Under Secretary General of the United Nations and the Executive Secretary of ESCAP, to deliver the opening addresses. Madam Executive Secretary, the floor is yours.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second session of the Committee on Energy. Energy is central to growth and prosperity. Yet energy demand in Asia and the Pacific has almost doubled since 2000, and energy imports have increased 15-fold over the past 2 decades, making our region a net energy importer. Energy will continue to be central to our future prosperity, but our region can no longer rely on fossil fuels to fulfill its energy needs. The Asia-Pacific region is responsible for about 50% of global greenhouse gas emissions. Much of this is due to the way we produce and consume energy. As a result, our climate is changing and calling for urgent action. Our people and communities are becoming more vulnerable to climate-related disasters. As the Secretary General of the United Nations has said many times, we are facing a climate emergency. Beyond the pressures of climate change, the energy sector is also being tasked to address a broad array of sustainability concerns as outlined in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The agenda provides us with a blueprint to align our efforts in the transition to sustainability. For the energy sector, SDG 7 provides a framework for energy development that balances the needs of people, planet, and prosperity. This is centered around universal access, increased efficiency, and a fast transition to renewable energy. The work of this committee is structured around regional cooperation to advance SDG 7. Allow me to touch on how the region is positioned on advancing sustainable energy. Starting with some good news. Access to electricity in the region is improving fast, and is likely to reach close to the 2030 target of 100% accessibility. However, without accelerating the uptake of renewable energy, increasing energy efficiency, and promoting clean cooking, we will simply not achieve SDG 7 and the other sustainable development goals. This is the reality not only for Asia and Pacific, but also for the world. That is why countries have called for a decade of accelerated action to achieve SDGs. What does accelerated action for achieving SDGs and living up to the promise of the Paris Agreement require from the energy sector? First, we need a fundamentally new approach to energy finance. Establishing the next generation of sustainable energy infrastructure requires expanded finance and more innovation in financing. Innovative financing mechanisms such as green bonds and public-private partnerships can play a role. Mobilizing more finance in turn requires supportive policies, public co-funding, incentives, and de-risking. When more finance is available, evidence from our region shows its incredible potential for sustainable energy. For example, opening up energy markets to transparent auctions is demonstrating how renewables are more competitive than any other source. A recent solar PV auction in Cambodia, for example, has seen a price of 3.87 US cents per kilowatt hour, the lowest power purchase tariff for a solar project so far recorded in Southeast Asia. By ending fossil fuel subsidies in the region, we can free up about $164 billion annually to fund sustainable energy. Second, we can tap the potential of regional cooperation for energy connectivity and electricity trading. Instead of generating energy from fossil fuels, renewable energy can be transmitted over long distances via interconnected transmission lines to locations where there is load center. Transnational energy networks would enable a more stable supply of clean and competitively priced energy. Such linkages would reduce our current reliance on fossil fuel-based power plants. Third, the Asia-Pacific region has impressive capabilities in technology which must be exploited. We have some of the best and lowest cost technologies in areas such as solar, wind, energy storage, and energy efficiency, which are improving every day. Moreover, our region is a leader in the development of these technologies. Innovation in energy will be the key deciding factor in realizing the sustainable energy revolution. We should encourage innovation at all scales and settings, from grassroots to high-tech applications. As new frontiers open up in areas such as blockchain, energy storage, and hydrogen technology, it is essential that we are ready for an innovation-led approach. Fourth and most important is political will or political leadership. Sustainable technologies exist, the price is on par, and finance can be aligned. But our region is stubbornly investing in energy that is undermining our own existence and the planet's future. Providing this collective energy leadership at the regional level is one of the important roles of the Committee on Energy. The committee can provide guidance and support for the efforts to achieve SDG 7, including a fast transition to renewable energy to reduce the adverse impact of conventional energy technologies and deliver social development outcomes. It can offer an effective platform to discuss ways to phase out fossil fuel subsidies and shift away from investing in fossil fuel-based power generation. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, in support of the committee and member states, ESCAP is supporting policymakers navigate their national energy transition and align them with decarbonization efforts and SDG 7 targets. Central to this effort has been the development of national implementation roadmaps on SDG 7. ESCAP, in consultation with national policymakers, is assisting to develop pathways to achieve SDG 7 and the Paris Agreement. ESCAP is also facilitating regional energy cooperation for interconnecting the region's power grids. Among the topics you will be discussing during this committee is the draft regional roadmap on power system connectivity for promoting cross-border electricity connectivity for sustainable development. Let us not forget the enormous potential of our region for the coming energy transition. We have an abundance of clean energy resources such as solar, wind, hydro, and biomass. We have a unique opportunity to enhance our cross-border energy interconnection and exploit these untapped renewable energy resources. Our region is home to many of the leading companies working on energy technology and innovation. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, let us remember we have only 1 decade to make a difference. We must act now. I'm looking forward to hearing your deliberations on all these issues. We are grateful for the support and cooperation received from our member states as we work together to advance regional energy cooperation. Thank you for your attention, and I wish you a very successful committee meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Executive Secretary. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Sarawut Kawut-Tatip, Deputy Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Energy, Royal Thai Government, to deliver the welcome addresses. Sir, you have the floor.
Excellency, Madam Amida Socia Alice Jabana, Under-Secretary General of the United Nations and Executive Secretary of the Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific. Excellency Ministers, the Honorable UN representatives and experts, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, very good morning to you all. On behalf of the Royal Thai Government, may I extend the warmest welcome to all of you to Bangkok today. And it is a great pleasure to do the opening of the second session of the ESCAP Committee on Energy. May I recall, since the adoption of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development in September 2015, many countries are making progress in realizing their efforts to meet the targets of SDG by 2030. However, challenges and difficulties in implementing still continue to persist. Implementing the 2030 Agenda requires collective action in every country. While the SDGs are universally applicable, each government is willing, also trying to decide how these aspirational and global targets should be incorporated into the national planning processes, especially in terms of coming up with the policies and strategies that finally must turn into actions. The Committee on Energy provides an opportunity to convene Asia-Pacific's policymakers to plan a regional agenda for sustainable energy. The discussion on how to achieve of Sustainable Development Goal, SDG 7, to leverage the capacities of other countries to progress towards the goal are critical to our success. This week is quite significant because Bangkok is very honored to host the venue, not just the 10th International Forum on Energy and Sustainable Development, and also the meeting today. That concluded together many of the world's leading energy experts to discuss how we move to the sustainable future. We congratulate UN ESCAP and the UN regional commissions for the organization of this conference. We begin the Committee on Energy today. I hope the ideas and strategies discussed at the forum will benefit your deliberation. Like the Madam Excellency has mentioned, the Asia-Pacific region is an economic powerhouse. The energy needs are growing faster than anywhere else in the world. Thailand is no exception. And in other countries, also in the region, we face some common challenges. We need to meet the increased energy demand growth. We have to ensure secure energy supplies while ensuring that the energy system is not only sustainable, but also affordable, yielding lower carbon emission. Responding to this energy trilemma means that a portfolio of measures is needed. Renewable energy, energy efficiency, electrification of transport, and regional power grids, regional power cooperation all have their places in this portfolio. I am certain that all the member states at this committee will be discussing these approaches in detail, but each country needs to develop its own response based on different circumstances. Ladies and gentlemen, the government of Thailand places great importance on the value of regional cooperation for building a sustainable energy future. Last month, Thailand, as a chair of ASEAN this year, hosted the 37th ASEAN Ministers on Energy meeting. At the meeting, the energy minister cooperated to progress many sustainable energy issues, from power grid connectivity to renewable energy and energy efficiency. We are very pleased to say there are many achievements in ASEAN energy sector. As power demand is increasing each year, we need to increase power security and power accessibility. One of these examples that has a strong support in the region is so-called ASEAN Power Grid. This is a cross-border initiative to interconnect the power grids of Thailand and ASEAN member countries by allowing power trade between ASEAN member countries in order to enhance not just security but affordability in the region. Thailand put an effort toward future regional cross-border power trade and grid connectivity to strengthen the energy security. During the ASEAN ministers meeting last month, we vowed to be the regional energy connector for the region and has operated the multilateral power trade for the first time through Lao PDR, Thailand, Malaysia, power integration project with high potential to expand to other neighbors. For Thailand Integrated Energy Blueprint, renewable energy proportion is determined to be 30% of the total energy consumption, especially on solar energy, which plays a key role in achieving the target. This is to be done in conjunction with the grid modernization, along with all the upcoming technologies such as Internet of Things, big data analysis also play a crucial role. For power sector, we have a new power development plan in which the share of the non-fossil energy in total power output will be increased significantly. And at least 1,000 megawatt will be earmarked for the solar PV for the household, so-called rooftop solar. Thailand is also designing a grid modernization and smart grid plan to improve the efficiency and reliability. And at present, our current minister is initiating a policy called Energy for All strategy. This is to be realized through the process of prosumerization policy that will support the public and community in order to construct community power plants, not only to enhance energy security, but also to provide environmental benefits and improve the well-being of the people in the communities. For policy action to scale up during the energy transition period, we will go through this using the 4D and 1E policy, including the digitalization, decarbonization, decentralization, and deregulation, in coupled with the electrification for transport. Thailand would also like to promote the bio-circular green economy, especially in terms of biofuels. Recently, we introduced a new grade of diesel fuel with a higher biodiesel content of up to 20% for the trucks, buses, and some public boats. We will also promote B10, which is 10% biodiesel, as a mainstream in the coming month. The purpose is not to only utilize the indigenous resources, but also to prevent the extreme air pollution from the diesel burning, the PM 2.5. For this, Thailand has a vision for a sustainable energy future that addresses the multiple energy policy challenges and will be the realization of our national goals, and hope to achieve the SDG 7 along with other member states. Thailand has put the effort to synthesize the national energy system to accelerate future energy plan as part of the overall economic development. Strong and concerted efforts toward renewable energy, cleaner fuel, and efficiency improvement through many successful implementation. And best practices in Thailand are clear and will indicate the commitment for the SDG 7 to be realized. In closing, I do believe a shared responsibility and collective effort we make, as well as active engagement with contribution of national, regional cooperation, together with political and economic groups, are vital to move forward to realize our intention. I would like to again sincerely convey Ministry of Energies of Thailand gratitude to Madam Excellency Ms. Amida Alice Jabana and UN ESCAP for organizing this second session of the Committee on Energy with a broad agenda that contains topics to enhance energy security, accelerating the progress of cross-border power trade, increase the share of renewable energy, and accelerate the achievement of the SDG 7. I wish all of you a great success and successful deliberation in this Committee on Energy and in meeting, and also enjoy the stay in Bangkok. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. We will now to move to agenda item 1B, the election of officers to the Bureau. The Bureau of the second session of the Committee on Energy is proposed to comprise 1 chair and 4 vice chairs. If there are no comments, I have the honor to invite nominations for the position of chair and vice chairs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving us the floor. For the second session of Committee on Energy, my delegation would like to propose Mr. Mohammad Hussain, Director General, Power Cell, Power Division, Ministry of Power, Energy and Mineral Resources, Bangladesh, as a chairperson. For the vice chairs, we propose Mr. Feng Quan An, Deputy Director General, Department of International Cooperation, National Energy Administration, China. Similarly, Mr. Talyat Aliyev, Deputy Director of the Department of International Cooperation, Ministry of Energy, Russian Federation. Similarly, Mr. Sharuat Keitathip, Deputy Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Energy, Thailand, and Mr. Avafo Irata, Chief Executive Officer, Ministry of Transport, Energy and Tourism, Tuvalu. Thank you.
Thank you, the distinguished delegates from Nepal. Would any other delegates like to second the nomination we just heard? Tajikistan, distinguished delegates from Tajikistan.
Мы также поддерживаем предложение Непала.
Thank you, the distinguished delegates from Tajikistan. Are there any other nominations for the positions of chair and vice chairs? Okay. I see none. It is therefore my honor to announce that the Bureau of the second session of the Committee on Energy is composed of the following: Chair, Mr. Mohammad Hussain, Director General, Ministry of Power, Energy, and Ministerial Resources, Bangladesh. Vice Chairs, Mr. Talyat Aliyev, Deputy Head of the Department of International Cooperation, Ministry of Energy, Russian Federation. Mr. Sarawut Keitathip, Deputy Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Energy, Thailand. Mr. Avafa Irata, Chief Executive Officer, Ministry of Transport, Energy and Tourism, Tuvalu, and myself, Feng Quan An, Deputy Director General, Department of International Cooperation, National Energy Administration, Chair. Now, please join me in congratulating the new Bureau members on their elections. Now, I would like to invite the newly elected chair to assume his responsibility as the chair of the second session of the Committee on Energy and conduct the next proceedings. Thank you very much.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed an honor and a privilege for me to assume the chair of the committee. On behalf of the other members of the Bureau, I wish to express our appreciation to the distinguished representatives for the confidence you have placed in us. As the chair of the second session of the Committee on Energy, I am now tasked to ensure that the committee achieves its objectives and produces fruitful outcomes for consideration on 11 October. In this connection, I'd like to rely on the spirit of cooperation and involvement of all the distinguished delegates and the able support of the members of the Bureau. I would also like to acknowledge and express my appreciation to the government of Thailand as the host country of ESCAP and its support in organizing this committee. I would also like to thank our predecessor committee to successfully conduct the earlier sessions, particularly to Mr. An, who has successfully conducted the earlier part of the election session of the next committee. I would also like to thank Mr. Hong Peng Liu, the director who is leading this energy team for the last few years successfully and move forward with the successful completion of all the sessions. I would also like to acknowledge that the Secretariat has arranged this committee very nicely. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, we shall now take up agenda item 1C, that is adoption of the agenda. The provisional agenda is contained in the document ESCAP/CE/2019/L.1. Are there any comments on the provisional agenda? I think I see none. The agenda in document ESCAP/CE/2021/L.1 is adopted. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your cooperation in adopting the agenda of the second session of the Committee on Energy. I understand that we'll take a short break at this time for a group photo. May I request the MC to announce the arrangement and next actions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before we take a break, I would like to invite the heads of delegation to a group photo in front of this conference room. Our Secretariat staff will assist guiding the heads of delegation to your position. Other delegates are also invited to the exhibition from the UN offices and our partner agencies under the theme, Good Practices for Advancing Energy Transition and Implementation of SDG 7 to achieve the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the Paris Agreement. The exhibition is located on the ground floor and the first floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Let us now take a break and we will resume the meeting promptly within 10 minutes. Thank you all. The meeting is adjourned.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. As the next agenda item of the second session of the Committee on Energy is about to commence, we kindly request that you take your seats. May I also request that all mobile phones be turned off or switched to silent mode at this time to avoid disruption during the session. Thank you.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I think we have a good break with the group photographs. So let me call this meeting to order. We shall now take up agenda item 2, status and progress towards achieving Sustainable Development Goal 7 in Asia and the Pacific. Under this agenda item, we'll consider the document status and progress towards achieving Sustainable Development Goal 7 in Asia and the Pacific, contained in ESCAP/CE/2019/1. First, may I invite Mr. Hongpeng Liu, Director of Energy Division, to introduce the agenda. After Mr. Liu's introduction, we'll hear from the panel discussion on the status and progress towards achieving Sustainable Development Goal 7 in Asia and the Pacific. The panel discussion will be followed by statements from delegates from the member states, international organizations, and the observers subsequently. Thank you. Now, Mr. Liu, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, distinguished delegates. This agenda is a review about status and the progress towards achieving Sustainable Development Goal 7 in Asia and the Pacific. The Secretariat prepared this background document and to provide the information. So I will just go quickly and just with the key point. So SDG target follow-up and the review process in this region. So as you recall, the Asian and Pacific Energy Forum 2018 adopted the ministerial declaration, recognized the important role of the Commission in supporting the implementation of 2030 agenda, including Sustainable Development Goal 7 and its follow-up and review process. The Commission Resolution 74/9 requested the Secretariat to support members and associate members in the implementation of the declaration by following up on and review progress towards SDG 7 targets at the regional level, and conducting analytical studies on key energy trends and emerging issues in the region, compiling and disseminating relevant energy information and data. So the regional and the national progress in achieving the target SDG 7, it's, I think, progressing, but there are still bigger challenges ahead. In 2017, the electrification rate for Asian Pacific total population reached 95%, up from 87% in 2010. Based on the current rate of progress, Asian Pacific is on track to achieve universal access to electricity by 2030. So in 2010, we still have a 2 billion population. More than 50% of the region's population rely on high polluted and harmful cooking solutions, mainly the traditional use of biomass. So by 2017, progress has expanded access even as the population grows, and these figures had dropped to about 1.9 billion populations, or 44% of the population in Asia. So that means the universal access from two aspects, from electricity access and the clean cooking. So electricity is on track, but the clean cooking is far behind. For target 2,
increasing substantially the share of renewable energy in global energy mix. So renewable energy shares remain steady regionally, but the majority of the member states demonstrated falling shares. So in fact, if you look at the absolute term in Asia Pacific, we are really leading the global development for renewable energy. But if you look at the share of renewable energy in the energy mix, actually it's declining for the last decade. I think there are two reasons. One is the increased energy consumption. And the second part is also the shift from the traditional use of biomass to modern cooking fuels. For target 3, to double the global rate of improvement in energy efficiency, the energy efficiency progress is mixed, with a small number of member states driving the region's energy intensity reduction trend. So the Asia-Pacific region has demonstrated a long-term decline in energy intensity level of primary energy, dropping from 7.4% in 2000 to 5.4% in 2016, and approaching the global average of 5. In 2010, the Asia-Pacific region had the world's highest energy intensity among global regions. But by 2016, the Asia-Pacific region's intensity has dropped to just below North America's, making the third most intense region. So we still have a lot of challenges for energy intensity. So in particular linked with the emission reduction, and renewable energy and energy efficiency play a major role to contribute to the greenhouse gas reduction. So we really have a big challenge in these two sectors. So in this case, we expect that the committee will review and also provide the guidance in terms of promoting policies, dialogue, and knowledge sharing, and helping to link the national and the global levels of implementation for SDG 7. And building capacity to the countries with special needs for producing, analyzing, and using various forms of data to effectively implement, following up the review of Goal 7. And then supporting the national efforts to mainstream the global targets related to energy into national policies, plans, and strategies. Finally, developing an annual compilation report on status and progress towards achieving Sustainable Development Goal 7 in Asia Pacific. As you are aware, we prepared this, we joined the global consortium to prepare regional progress for SDG 7 implementation. So we hope this will be a regular exercise. We continue to provide information about the progress of the region in implementing of Sustainable Development Goal 7. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hong Feng, for your nice presentation and giving us insight of the progress of this Goal 7. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we now move to the panel discussion. I am very pleased to invite Mr. Yongping Jai, Chief of Energy Sector Group, Sustainable Development and Climate Change Department, ADB, to introduce the panelists and to moderate the discussion. Mr. Yongping Jai, now the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'm very honored to take the role of moderator for this panel discussion. I also thank Hong Peng for providing the context of this discussion. It's my great pleasure to invite you, Mr. Chair, to be part of this panel discussion, and we'd like to also invite other members of the panel to join the stage. We have Mr. Dilip Sadola, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Energy, Water Resources and Irrigation, Nepal. We have Mrs. Dana Kenney, Chief of Party, USAID, Clean Power Asia. We have Mr. Solomon Fifita, Manager of the Pacific Center of the Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Pacific Community Secretariat. We have also Mr. Jorgen Kenhorst, Chair of UN ECE, Committee on Sustainable Energy, who will join us. I understand he's joining a little later to the panel. Thank you very much, panelists, to be joining us. I would like to commence by asking each speaker to present your individual perspective on progress, but also challenges towards the achievement of Sustainable Energy Goal 7. Mr. Hompo has mentioned broadly the progress and issues, but I would like to hear from you, our panelists, your view on your work experience, what's been the issues, challenges, and progress. May I start with inviting Mr. Dilip Sadola, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Energy, Water Resources, and Irrigation, Nepal, to start giving us your view, please. Our speakers will, for the first round, for opening remarks, we can take more or less 5 minutes each. Then I will go to next round of questions. You can elaborate more on the issues, questions. Can discuss.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Yong Ping Jai, fellow panelists, and distinguished participants. First of all, let me thank the entire ESCAP Energy Division family for organizing this meeting and for providing me the opportunity to speak as the panelist. Indeed, I feel privileged to be part of this important event. Today, we are here to discuss Agenda Item 2, Status of and Progress towards achieving Sustainable Development Goal 7 in Asia and the Pacific at depth. I guess I have been invited here to deliver the synopsis of SDG 7 in Nepal. Mr. Chair, please allow me to proceed. Nepal is endowed with immense hydropower potential. The total theoretical potential of the country is about 83,000 megawatt, of which 43,000 megawatt has been considered as techno-economically feasible. Despite this, grid electricity accounts only 4% in Nepal's energy consumption statistics. Wood fuel accounts 64%, occupying the top position till today. Nepal witnessed power cut for the period of long 11 years from 2005 to 2016. But the power supply situation started improving from October 2016 onwards. From May 2018, there is no power cut at all. People connected to the grid are getting uninterrupted supply. It is to be noted that Nepal achieved comparatively higher annual growth in the GDP during past 3 consecutive years, 7.7 in fiscal year 16-17, 6.3% in 17-18, and 6.8% in 18-19, respectively. Improvement in the growth rate is largely attributable to the improvement in the power supply system. By now, 88% of the population have access to electricity. This is 7.2% more than the SDG target for 2019. Similarly, per capita electricity consumption has reached to 245 kilowatt hour, which is 15 kilowatt hour more than 2019 target. However, we are a bit behind the target in installed capacity. We have 1250 megawatt and target is 2301 megawatt. It is primarily due to the delay in completion of some important projects because of the Gorkha earthquake of April 2015 and its aftershocks. We believe that it will be possible to catch up the 2022 target without much difficulty. We are also making some progress in clean cooking targets. By now, 1.3 million plus households are using ICS and about 0.5 million households are using biogas plants. We are planning to install 200,000 plus domestic and 1,100 plus commercial biogas plants within the present 5-year plan period. During this period, additional 500,000 households will start using ICS. As of now, renewable energy share in the total final energy consumption stands only 7% against 22% target of 2019. This is largely attributable to the increased import of petroleum product, including LPG, during that period. It is expected that the renewable energy share will increase in coming years as more hydro projects come under operation. There is still a lot to do in energy efficiency sector, although some initiatives have already been taken. Government of Nepal has approved Nepal Energy Efficiency Strategy 2018. Electric vehicles are being introduced in public transportation gradually. Recently, 20 charging stations have come under operation. Alternative Energy Promotion Center has now been brought under Ministry of Energy, Water Resources and Irrigation and is empowered to look after energy efficiency and to implement the renewable energy programs at provincial and local levels as well. Energy Efficiency Act has been drafted and is under consultative process. As present, there are altogether 735 number of hydropower projects totaling 39,929 megawatt capacity at different licensing stages, out of which number of issued generation license stands at 209, having 7,900 megawatt of capacity. 29 generation license applications are under review. A significant number of transmission and distribution projects are under implementation nationwide. Electricity Act has been drafted so as to incorporate the needful provisions in order to address contemporary issues of change context, including implementation of federal system of governance. It is almost at the final stage of the consultative process. The long-awaited Electricity Regulatory Commission has been established and it has started functioning since 8 May 2019. A high-level steering committee has been formed under the chairmanship of Right Honorable Prime Minister to monitoring the SDG progress. There are also some challenges. Meeting 100% in access at higher tier is difficult because of the terrain condition and the scattered settlements, particularly in the higher Himalayan regions. Water-induced disasters are posing threats to our hydropower installations. Securing land for transmission line projects are becoming difficult day by day. Achieving targets in clean cooking seems more challenging as it is interconnected to and influenced by a large number of factors. Despite having these challenges, we believe that we are more or less in the right track. However, we need helping hand from international agencies and the development partners in the areas of formulating refined policy and plans such that SDG targets are achieved within the stipulated time frame. We are very much hopeful to start new level of collaboration with ESCAP in energy planning and capacity development soon. Achieving SDG target, though difficult, is not impossible. Thank you so much for your kind attention. Thank you once again for giving me this opportunity to speak in this important gathering. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joint Secretary, for sharing great achievement in Nepal. Let's move now to next panelist. We have Ms. Dana Kenny, Chief of Party USAID Clean Power Asia, for sharing our view. But prior to that, I would like to thank Joint Secretary again joining me for Now, Ms. Dana Kenny, please.
Good morning. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Yongqing Chai, fellow panelists, distinguished guests. It's an honor to be here. We have cooperated with the UN in many of the countries we work in. I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach in my remarks in that we work in many countries. We are a US government-funded program, USAID, working on clean power, but that encompasses many areas. So just quickly, I'll give you an overview of what we focus on and our perspective on these countries. I didn't actually, I have been part of, fortunately, invited to other UN events. I have seen presentations on the SDGs, but I didn't analyze them for each country. So I'm giving you an idea of what we see as the current state of things in those countries that relates to Sustainable Development Goal 7. So we are a 5-year program that began in 2016, and our focus is on increasing the deployment of grid-connected renewable energy. It's implemented by my company, APT Associates, and we work with many partners, including Chulalongkorn University here in Thailand, the ASEAN Center for Energy, which are here today, other organizations in the US, and local and regional. And so because we're regional, we focus mainly on the lower Mekong, Cambodia, Laos, PDR, Thailand, and Vietnam, but we work at the regional level of all of Southeast Asia as well. And we've done some work in the Philippines. So our goal is to facilitate the proposal, adoption, and implementation of policies and regulations, to facilitate mobilizing investment, specifically $750 million in renewable energy, and leading to financial closure of 500 megawatts of plants, soon to be increased to 625. And the approach that USAID takes is to focus on strategic energy planning, renewable energy zones, which is a transmission planning tool, incentives, and competitive procurement, which is not incentives, the technical issues of grid integration, and facilitating private investment. So we work on the 3 areas that encompass these, making sure that, or facilitating governments and utilities to include higher shares of renewable energy and planning, to consider them, to improve the enabling environment, to understand the markets, and then to mobilize investment in the environment we have. And so most of the countries we work in address these all concurrently, but Thailand recently took a step back and wanted to complete their power development plan, because in theory your policies should support your plan, and then you can facilitate investment by unlocking the other barriers beyond the policies and regulations. Briefly, in Cambodia, well, so all of the lower Mekong are single buyer markets. So is Indonesia, but the Philippines is different. Some other countries are different. So Cambodia has significant solar. They have high prices. They have a high level of fuel imports. And the utility has invested in solar. You may have heard of the recent auction facilitated by the ADB. And the government has increased interest in the role of solar, including the potential role of the private sector. Previous policies were that were encouraging private sector, or at least unclear, were kind of all put on hold for a while. But there are many donors showing up these days. Lao PDR, existing solar is minimal, but there is significant solar potential and some wind. It's primarily in the southeast and the southwest. And the government wants to diversify to complement hydro, especially during the dry season. And EDL and GEN has some small solar investments, but the government is really looking forward to the role of the private sector, how to involve the private sector from the beginning. Right now, it's mostly build, own, transfer, but they're looking at some build, own, operate. In Thailand has been a leader in the region. They were at the beginning of when we started in 2016. We looked at the change between 2006 and 2016. When we first started, and Thailand had the most megawatts. We didn't compare by the demand, but Philippines was a close second. Things really took off there when they had more private sector investment, but other policies did not encourage the investment in solar and wind, whereas there was a lot of investment in solar in Thailand. Now there's a focus on rooftop PV or DPV and regional connectivity with assistance of IEA. And lastly, Vietnam, everyone knows the power sector is growing. There's a shortage of power. And in some regions where they've had strong incentives and during the FIT and a deadline, there was an oversubscription. Many of the plants that have been built are not dispatched. And the next PDP is expected to have an increased share of RE, so they're really looking at how to address both the economic and technical issues. I don't have much time left, so let me just say that we've worked on all of these issues in all of these countries. Lao PDR is an integrated resource and resilience plan, together with RE zones for transmission planning, and looking at pathways that are called no regrets, integrating some risks, including mostly natural risks like climate change and others. And we've learned that all the planning approaches are useful in a country like Laos to bring them all together because there's a limited number of people involved. Some of the other countries have larger donors helping them. And on enabling environment, we've mainly focused on rooftop PV, DPV in Thailand, Vietnam, and the Philippines, both net billing and net metering policies. What we learned there is that the analyses really help inform decision-making, especially balancing the impact on stakeholders. And in promoting investment, the private sector is interested despite all of the barriers that exist. PPAs that aren't bankable, utilities that high risks. So risk mitigation is really important. So I would say in all these countries, the amount of renewable energy right now on the grid is really small, except for Thailand. And the plans up till now have not included really an increase. That is changing now with both the planning processes that have just started in all the countries, and we're also working at the regional level with the Austrian Center for Energy. It's they're very highly sophisticated analyses, but they're beneficial, I think, for the country's decision makers to understand. And I understand there's a next step process that the UN has to bring the environment and the power sector planning closer together. So I'll leave it at that, and then thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Dana Kenny, for sharing USAID's work in lower Mekong countries, but also Philippines, where ADB is headquartered, and we're happy that USAID ADB signed the MOU. We can jointly support better our countries. Now we would like to move to our third speaker, Mr. Jorgen Kenhorst, Chair of UN's ECE Committee on Sustainable Energy, who joined us on stage. Thank you very much. For your views, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, moderator. Thank you and congratulations to my chair here from your organization. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to represent this morning the UNECE in your committee. So it's quite interesting for me to see how it works here. So I'm sure that we can take a lot of new experiences from your side into our committee, and maybe later we might have also a chance to exchange some ideas among the committees. So let me make just a few remarks concerning the UNECE Committee on Sustainable Energy. It also addresses and has its main goal to support countries in the UNECE region to get SDG 7 implemented. Therefore, in general, there's a strong orientation on the SDG process, but also on the implementation of the Paris Agreement. What is a specialty of the UNECE Committee on Sustainable Energy is that it is to a very large extent expert-oriented work. So the main asset of the UNECE committee are the 6 expert groups. I will not go into details, but just to give you an example, we have one on energy efficiency, others on renewable energies, and very important resource classification in a wider sense. So experts are invited globally to these expert groups, and I think to share experience from their work in all UN committees is something we can deliver and all profit on. When it comes to the region, it's also quite a huge region and with very different situation, as it's the case here in the Asian and Pacific region. I will not talk too much about this so-called triangle, magic triangle, when it comes to energy access. Electricity access is mainly 100% achieved. We have also quite good infrastructure in the region related to gas. And where we have remote areas, there's of course also the possibility to have autonomous supply of energy. So this is not a big issue, but affordability issues for good energy service, these are still relevant points, and when it comes to access, then it's more about this question. Energy security, that's a very politically relevant issue. It's a question of perspective. So if you perceive security better to provide it via autarky, or alternatively if you consider it as reciprocal dependency. So that is not just a philosophical question, that's also a real question, and this is something which we also discuss in the committee. And the point I would like to concentrate on, to focus on, is the third element, environment, climate, or in a wider sense, sustainability. And this is really an issue also in the UNECE region. We can clearly state that we are not on track with the respective goals. So maybe if we would continue as at the moment, we would have an increase of temperatures of 4 degrees. So therefore, there is definitely a challenge. The question is how this challenge can be addressed, and what can the UN system and especially the economic commissions contribute. In the ECE, we have set up some years ago a so-called Pathways project. It was initiated by the Russian Federation and financially supported by Russia, the US, and Germany to develop different pathways, as the region is so diverse, until 2050. The goal is less to have the one strategy for the region. It's more to see what are the relevant assumptions and what is the outcome of the respective modeling, and to have a basis for a fact-based dialogue in the region. And this is something which we can share with your region. As you know, we have also some overlapping in the Central Asia and in the Caucasus, and we have broken down such analysis and strategies for the respective subregions, and we have to make the model more efficient and reliable, also included or had to include other regions of the world, and we can share such modeling with your committee as well. We do not stop at this point. We just in the discussion how to continue. The main issue, frankly speaking, will be to convince countries in their investment strategies to go on a track which is in line with the overarching goals from the SDGs and from the Paris Agreement. We did also some financing access calculations, and just to give you one example, the calculation is for our region that we would have to spend until 2050 $25 trillion US dollar in investment in energy infrastructure if we continue as we did in the past, so the business as usual scenario. And with our insufficient NDCs in the region, we would have to spend only 1 trillion more, 26. And if we would be in line with the 2-degree goal, then we would have to spend 29 trillion US dollar. Of course, trillions are a lot of money, but given the time and the region, you see mainly the difference is what makes it very obvious that the fulfillment of the climate requirements and SDGs is feasible. It's not such a huge difference between the scenarios. And the interesting thing is if you break this down to the sub-regions, you have the basis to develop some policy advice. And this is what we intend to do from our region. So let me conclude, which we perceive as a main challenge is maybe less the energy policy or the environment policy as such, as mainly as your Secretary General in her introductory remarks mentioned how to get these investments financed. And this is a big issue. As we so far have too high financing costs and underdeveloped financing system and banking system in many parts of our regions, also in the UNECE region. And with interest rates of 10–20%, no investment, which is normally a very good investment, is feasible. And as these kind of investments are long-term orientated, we do not have the progress we have to get to the SDG goals implemented. This is one point. So we would like to go more in contact with financing institutions to find solutions. And then the second point, quite often it is very underestimated point that the countries have their own resources, unlocked potential, especially due to very high subsidies in the energy field. And if you would reduce it a little bit and do investments with the same money, you would improve the situation and then also reduce the need for subsidies. This is another issue. So just transition is another point we have on our agenda, but with a limited time, I leave it at that. And thank you very much once again for this opportunity to address your panel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ken Horst. We have a second chance to come back to some of the issues we have not covered yet. Just add that although US, UN ESCAP, UN ECE, you're covering different geographic areas, so I think a lot to learn from each other. And as far as ADB is concerned, we do have some overlap in the Central Asia and West. So that's great. Now, may I ask next speaker, Mr. Solomon Fifta, Manager of Pacific Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency, Pacific Community Secretariat, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's an honor to be able to present my perspective on the progress of the Pacific Islands on SDG 7, which I think can be captured by the expression that the reward for getting a job done is to be given some more work to do. Significant progress has been made, but certainly there's a lot more to do. Fortunately, a lot of the countries have set 2020 as the target year, And so it's an opportune time to review the progress and reset as countries develop their plans for 2020 and 2030. In terms of the progress on access to electricity, it's pleasing to note that 11 out of the 19 Pacific Island countries and territories have access to electricity rates of 98% or higher. In fact, the rate of access in the region as a whole has been very much affected by the progress in the more larger and more populated countries like Papua New Guinea, Solomon Islands, and Vanuatu. But significant progress has been made in those three countries. For example, for Papua New Guinea, it was 11% in 2000, but it's 54% in 2017. In Vanuatu, 22% to 62% in 2017. And it's the same progress in the Solomon Islands with annual growth of 2.5%. In terms of clean cooking, that still remains to be a challenge. An estimated 80+% of the people in the region still continue to rely on inefficient and polluting cooking fuels and technologies, largely to do with Papua New Guinea, where about more than 7 million people are still having no access to clean cooking fuel. This is a case where small is beautiful. In the case of Nauru, Niue, and Palau, who have excess of more than 90%. Significant progress has been made in other countries. For example, in the Marshall Islands, it has gone from 7% in 2000 to 66% in 2017. Similarly, for Tuvalu, 1.9%, then it increased to 52% in 2017. A lot of this is to do with access to electricity, kerosene, as well as LPG. In terms of the renewable energy uptake, significant progress has been made, but at the same time, the demand for electricity is increasing at a higher rate, and I think this is an area where we have to watch, because if the demand cannot be met from renewable energy, the growth in renewable energy, then certainly it will be met from fossil fuel. In terms of energy efficiency, there's still a lot of work to do in here. The energy intensity highest can be found in Marshall Islands and Palau, where it is more than 10 megajoules per dollar of GDP. That's more like double the global average. Surprisingly, in Tonga, it's about 3.2 megajoules. That's about the most energy efficient in terms of energy intensity. I should mention that there is a lot of work going on right now in terms of energy efficiency in transport, and one can find in the nationally determined contribution of the Pacific Islands. This is missing from there. There may be 1 or 2 countries which included efficiency in transport in their NDC. But in terms of clean cooking, that cannot be found in any of the energy roadmaps, as well as in the NDCs too. And as I said, the opportunity to plan 2020 to 2030 would be an opportunity to put more emphasis on clean food, cooking fuel, as well as in efficiency in transport. In terms of the challenges, a lot of the achievements that have been made can be attributed to the generosity of donors. Most have been grant aid funded. Not all of them, but a lot of the progress have been due to grant aid funding. So there's a space in there in terms of 2020, 2030 to look at innovative financing arrangements, as well as a greater role for the private sector. Data remains to be a challenge. The local capacity is still a huge challenge, and therefore the need for regional agencies like myself continue giving me a job at the regional level to support local capacities. And of course, there are many players, donors in the Pacific space in the energy sector, and the need for coordination cannot be underemphasized. I think I'll stop there, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fifita, for presenting a very clear picture on each aspect of SDG in your region. And the region, I must add that the ADB is very active supporting the region. We have almost close to $1 billion package to supporting the transition in the Pacific region, where we have many country states there declaring the 100% renewable energy target, very ambitious. Now, may I ask our chair, but as a member of the panelists this time, Mr. Mohammad Hossain, Director General of Ministry of Power, Energy and Mineral Resources, Bangladesh, to give your view on SDG 7, please.
Thank you, Mr. Yang Ping Jai. Nice meeting you again. In fact, we happened to meet often. So far, I remember we have met back in 2010 in Bangkok in the ASEF conference. And happy to have you here as a moderator. In fact, I'm happy to see that this is a very diverse panel from covering all the regions of the globe. We have heard from Mr. Dilip Sadula, a very good friend of our South Asian member states, and representing the developing country. Then Ms. Dana from USAID, Mr. Jargan, representing the other side of the region. Then Mr. Solomon, who is representing the Pacific Islands. I think all have contributed not only their part, also they give a very picture of where we stand. And Mr. Dilip Sadula, he has not only given the scenario of the Nepal, but it's a scenario, I can say, as an integrated scenario of our South Asian, because you know this Nepal is a country with rich hydro potential, where we are all together trying to harness this hydro potential that can contribute to the agenda that we are talking about. Ms. Dana, she has given a very good stock taking from their interventions. And Mr. Jargan, as you said that other than ESCAP, UNEC also contributing, and he has given the tools and models that they have developed, and also financing access calculations. Mr. Solomon has also given the isolated country scenario where I think the renewables could be a good solution. Let us hear more from the panelists, then definitely we'll have more contribution from the audience. Thank you very much for giving me the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair, for joining this panel. I would like to, at this stage, to go to the second round of questions. This time, maybe more specific. Please allow me to go a bit beyond the script you have, or you may have, you may not have. And I start with Mr. Sadola, Joint Secretary in Nepal. Nepal is many countries are talking about energy transition to low carbon. Nepal is already low carbon, right? So in terms of a long-term energy development, hydropower can play its low carbon, can be also exported to India. But sir, do you see a potential for using hydropower for more domestic use beyond just lighting household, but more industry use, maybe potentially for transport through electric vehicles? And that can add value to your hydropower, that's clean resources. Just want to see whether can go beyond the being already low carbon with hydro resources, how it can go a next step. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, the moderator, Mr. Yong Ping Chai, for giving me this floor for interact. Indeed, by the end of this fiscal year, we will be producing more than we require. So in order to meet the SDG targets also, and in order to give impetus to our economy, we will be trying to export our hydropower to the neighboring countries and beyond also through practical power trade agreement between our neighbors. So in this endeavor, we are engaged in dialogue with India, Bangladesh, and China. So in near future, I am hopeful that we'll have a good mechanism to have this. And secondly, at the same time, we are, as you indicated, hydropower generation and industrialization, in my opinion, should go parallel. So as we have more power, more industries are coming up, and more investment are coming up. So we'll be using this power for our industrialization and for attracting foreign investment as well. And with respect to the transportation sector, as I mentioned before, we are planning that as we produce more hydro, we'll shift from the existing fossil fuel dominated transportation system to electric. So this is how we are planning. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, sharing encouraging development in Nepal, and Nepal is helping other countries to decarbonize as well with your hydro resources. Now, as part of the second round of questions, I'll go to Ms. Dana Kenny, Chief of Party, USAID, Clean Power Asia. I would like to ask you a specific question. How USAID is supporting private sector investors in the region? What specific support you can give? I understand the private sector, they do have their own money, and what role USAID can play value addition to promote more investment from private sector?
Very good. I have the right microphone now. One of the three areas we are focusing on is facilitating investment. While we can work with the public sector, we do focus on the private sector. That's primarily because it can grow faster, and that's really the main reason. And there are a lot of barriers to public investment, although it is happening. Some of the things we're working on, the main focus we have is on reducing or improving bankability of projects, and then also facilitating the right allocation of risks, understanding of risks and allocation of risks, so that to facilitate the financing once the project is bankable. What we keep hearing is there is money out there just aren't bankable projects. Why aren't they bankable? Well, in some countries, the risks are so high that you can't make the project economics work. In other countries, you can't value the risk. Like if, for instance, the PPA for international investors, it's not bankable in Vietnam because of the risk of it can be non-dispatched or interrupted, curtailed, sorry, at any time. So an understanding of why those decisions are made, those policies, is important. Why they're keeping a PPA where the projects can be interrupted, because it's hard to understand why anyone would invest in them. So what we've been working with Vietnam on developing an alternative policy, which allows the utility just to wheel the power and have direct contracts between the producers and the buyers. Particularly influential in this is the Renewable Energy Buyers Alliance, RE100. We've created, so in order to reduce the risks or allocate the risk differently and reduce the cost, we've developed like guidelines for solar rooftop in Thailand, working with GIZ on when needed on the policies. We focus on financing. We've done training, developed financial models and PPA templates, and done training of banks and mostly. There are many banks in Vietnam, for instance, that can't invest in new projects until they refinance the old ones, because there's a huge amount of equity. That's how they started, et cetera. So I think the capacity building, the developing models and tools is really helpful. That we find the private sector in the one-on-one work we do, or for a series of projects, they're looking at how can they structure the deal to make it financeable. And we've been able to do that with B. Grimm most recently. We helped them with a wind project in Vietnam. Usually we get involved when it's cross-border, Thai investors or investors from other places investing in other countries, and bringing those models to the other countries. So that's been our experience, that it's having guidelines and tools is helpful, leveraging the various resources that are out there. Often for allocating risk or mitigating risk requires government guarantees. They're usually not willing to do that. So we're trying to find other models. So that's how we've been working.
Thank you very much for sharing very practical advice on how we allocate risk and how to mitigate these risks from USAID, Ms. Kenny's remarks. Now, may I ask Mr. Ken Horst from UNECE, from a different region. When I say different region, but still we have common issues, if not in terms of electrification, you already have achieved that. But in clean heating, I think there's a scope for us to learn from what's happening in your area. And a lot of countries, of course, in this part of the Asia, clean heating is not the issue, but efficient cooling is the issue. But in terms of clean cooling, indeed, including clean cooking and clean heating. And this is an area I think there's knowledge work, knowledge sharing we can learn. Actually, some of these countries, Central Asia, heating is a long winter. And Mongolia, in our region, China, and North East Asia, a lot of common issue. And this is a source of pollution. So I wonder whether there's some work in your area in terms of promoting clean heating, and that can be in technology or business model or some country policies that can be shared with us, with this region. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. There are a few aspects in this regard. On the one side, heating as well as cooling is closely related to the issue of energy efficiency. And energy efficiency or low energy efficiency, or you could also say it's low energy productivity, is a big issue, especially in the UNECE region. You mentioned already the climate conditions, and due to the price signals too low price for energy, and in the past we have structures which promote the very low energy efficiency. And this is a challenge, how to improve energy efficiency, and as it contributes in the heating sector nearly to 40% of the emissions, this is also a big issue for climate policy. And it has this so-called co-benefits you can see in many parts of the region. You referred many to Mongolia, for example, and Ulaanbaatar. Their clean air is directly linked to health issues, so there might be the climate policy, the co-benefit from the clean air policy. So as everywhere, the main challenge is how to organize the financing. The technologies are available, they are accessible, but another point is how to get them financed. And in many of these countries, you have this limited access to capital, or very high interest rates, or only loans which you can get for 2 or 3 years. And then it's not a business case, and therefore we have to overcome these barriers. So for the huge investments, and there's a lot also related to grids. So it's not the decentralized heating. It's quite often via combined production of heat and electricity. And this has networks, and these networks are in a bad shape, so quite often outdated, and huge investments are necessary. And we have to develop financing models for this. And we did so, for example, with Ukraine, that is out of this region, and we are now starting such considerations with the government of Uzbekistan, how to use partly the subsidy payments for investments to reduce the load of subsidies, but without leaving anyone behind. So we have to compensate with other instruments so that socially this is an acceptable policy. So that's a big issue. And when it comes to the huge investments, but this is not just addressing heat, also electricity, and what we see, and with some concern, is that still new power plants based on coal are built in the region. Then our concern is that it is not just a problem for SDG and for the climate policy, but also that it could mean stranded assets in the future. And what we are discussing now in the UNECE, based on activities of some of our member states, to do all calculations for new investment with shadow price for carbon dioxide. Maybe you can start with 10, you can go to $30 per ton CO2. But just recently we had also a study for the Middle East region where we could show that even with a price of 10 or 20 US dollar per ton CO2, the full investment would change from coal to solar, and the economics are completely different. So such type of recommendations and analysis, this might be something which we can provide also via our UN system. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kenhorst. And that's an area we can continue our dialogue and see how we can better share knowledge. I would like to turn my next question to Mr. Solomon Fifita from the Pacific Community Secretariat. A natural question coming from this region, that countries, can be interconnected. So when we talk about the regional cooperation, we have interconnection in mind. But how do you see regional integration in Pacific states, the countries, island states, and what kind of international cooperation we can better support? And through your work or through your suggestion, you can share with us.
Thank you, Chair. It's one of the more difficult questions that has been thrown at me before. Just looking at the connectivity and integration, and one can appreciate that in Asia it may be a case of laying a cable from one boundary to another country. For the Pacific, we are divided, but we can also say that we are connected by the ocean. So I think in terms of connectivity and integration, the ocean will have to play a role on that. One thing that comes to mind is in terms of transportation of energy, connecting one country to the other, and by combining demand and having bulk purchases would benefit members. But also from the other angle, if you look at standardization and in terms of harmonization, given the small countries and the ease of trying to coordinate things among the members, that the value of standardizing equipment design, installation standards, even the training materials, even though there are also differences within the region. You have the French, you have the US, and you have those who are using the British and Australian standards. But I think the value of having harmonized approach, harmonized standards in the Pacific Islands would be to the benefit of all that are providing support to the countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fifita, for giving me a best answer for a very difficult question. I take note of that. We have 7 minutes left before I conclude with my own observations. May I ask our chair if you have some advice to us before I conclude?
Thank you very much, Mr. J. I think you are very much on track. At least you have conducted this panel in a very timely manner. So I'd rather request you to conclude, give your concluding remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I have to speak on with my hat as ADB. I heard Mr. Kenhorst talk about the investment requirement in your region. But for ADB, we have roughly considered that in this region, Asia and the Pacific region, to achieve clean energy, to meeting the both goals, SDG, but also climate goals, we need $1 trillion investment in the region per year. And that's only for power. I'm not talking about oil and gas and that only. So 1 trillion per year. And you know how much ADB can provide? 5 billion per year. So it's 0.5% of requirement in this. So that's give me an opportunity often to say that how much we should encourage private sector participation. And that's why I asked question to USAID, why, how you would support private sector, and that's very important. And for ADB side, to use this 0.5% of concessional money, sometimes grant money, efficiently would be to leverage more private sector participation. For us specifically, I would like to mention a few things. What ADB believes, how we can use this money efficiently and to mobilize more from private sector commercial sources. One is to encourage and support new technologies. Some of these challenges we are facing, when we say it's impossible, difficult, like clean cooking, it's a difficult question, and clean for transport. But there are technologies that are being developed on a daily basis. We believe that technology advances will be the answer. If we say we are off track to achieve SDG 7 and climate goals, we should say that there are already technologies available for us to achieve these targets. So because of this belief, ADB and together with USAID, USAID also, but UN ESCAP, that we are working on technology roadmaps to see how we can achieve SDG 7 and also climate goals by 2030, what kind of technology is needed. So that study is ongoing. Actually, we kicked off this study yesterday from ADB side together with our technical expert today here. So we'll continue to work with ESCAP, of course, with other partners. So that's one answer, technology. The other answer is that we should make the market work. I think that the subsidies can support to a certain extent these technologies, but for them to be scaled up, large scale, we have to ask the market to provide the answer from the market. We are actually very happy. Recently, we, as mentioned by Ms. Kenny, in Cambodia, we have this auction. We were pleasantly surprised by the low price offered from private sector, very low price. We didn't expect that, but that did happen. So I think that market will offer a better solution than just concession of money. And for that to work, and the government can do one thing, is to push for a price for carbon. You have mentioned the shadow pricing. Mr. Ken also mentioned the shadow pricing for carbon. Actually, pricing for carbon. And for us, we are ADB, we are doing shadow pricing first because in the absence of the real market in the region, ADB has adopted $36 per ton as internal indicator when we do project assessment. If any solution, when we calculate using this shadow price, that will lead to a negative return, then we will not invest. So this is one practical way of supporting low carbon development. And lastly, I would like to conclude by saying new technologies, market forces, but as mentioned by Mr. Fifita from Pacific experience, that common standards, learning from each other, cooperation will be very, very important for us to achieve these goals. Very happy to be part of this forum by ESCAP. Very happy to be moderator of this panel. And I believe that each time I'm part of these discussions, it's a good opportunity to reconnect with good friends, but also learning from each other. People often say that we talk a lot, whatever we say, people already know. But offline, once we go out and you find people networking with each other, and this great sharing knowledge and reconnecting with friends and experts is very important part of this kind of forum. I congratulate ESCAP and my friend Hong Peng for organizing this forum. Thank you very much. So this panel is done. I hand over to Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Jai, and thank you, the panelists, for your very insightful discussion. And let us have another round of applause to all the panelists and the moderators. I would like to invite Mr. Hong Peng to come to the dais. Now, I will open the floor for the statement by the delegates, organizations, and civil society groups. I think we can start with the members, associate members, and permanent observers, and followed by UN bodies and specialized agencies and intergovernmental organizations, and then civil societies. Is there any list? Yeah, I think we have a list of the speakers. I can see we can begin with Republic of Korea. Floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Chair. And it is a great honor for me to open this floor as the first speaker. And also, I also want to extend my sincere gratitude to the panelists for their attentive discussion, which touched many important aspects and provided great insight on the implementation progress of SDG 7 in this region. We, Korea, reaffirms our strong commitment to working together to advance the 2030 Agenda, in particular SDG 7. We recognize the role and prominence of the Committee on Energy of ESCAP in supporting the implementation, follow-up, and review process of the members' policies to achieve SDG 7. Having said this, it is a reality we face that a considerable number of people in the Asian Pacific region still lack reliable access to energy. Even though we recognize that much progress has been made, however, to address this energy poverty issue requires the coordinated endeavor among member countries to realize universal access to energy, and accelerated pace is needed. Here, I would like to share with you my country's efforts to achieve the SDG 7. The Republic of Korea has conducted the policy of energy transition. It is a core task in our efforts to make our society sustainable and to achieve a sustainable and environment-friendly energy mix. The Korean government has also come up with a concrete plan for energy transition. Korea is taking a step-by-step approach to gradually modify the old mix and increase the share of electricity generated from renewable energy to 30 to 35% by 2040, which means more than 95% of new capacity is solar photovoltaics and wind. The integrated nature of the SDGs, in particular SDG 7, requires a multi-stakeholder response at all levels. We must strengthen partnership with a broad range of actors, including civil society and the private sector. We take particular note of the importance to engage with the civil society and the private sector more actively, in a sense that our efforts to realize the SDG 7 would be in vain without public participation, like self-production and consumption for home and building agricultural photovoltaics and small, large-scale projects. Furthermore, Korea has devised and implemented a roadmap of investment for clean energy research and development. It is also nurturing new sectors in the energy industry. One instance of this is the energy storage system designed to overcome the intermittency of renewable energy. And among the actions that we encourage are to promote renewable energy in the international arena. We work closely with both the Green Climate Fund and the Global Green Growth Institute based in Korea. In addition to this, the 8th meeting of the International Renewable Energy Conference will be held in Seoul this October, and we welcome the ESCAP member states' participation in this KIREG event. The government of the Republic of Korea will continue to work together with the international community through its energy diplomacy, tailored to the needs of the era of energy transition. We again underscore the need to tackle the energy poverty problem and achieve the ideal of SDG 7 in the Asian Pacific region, which is considered as the global engine for economic development. We hope for ESCAP members to join together to this end. I would like to conclude by stating that Korea reaffirms its continued support to ESCAP's efforts to achieve SDG 7. Thank you.
Thank you, distinguished delegates from Republic of Korea. I would now invite distinguished delegate from Mongolia.
Thank you, Mr.
Yes.
Chair, for giving me the floor. Mr. Chair, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, let me begin by extending our sincere congratulations to you, Mr. Chair, on your election as chair of the second session of the Committee on Energy. I am confident that under your able leadership, the session will be led to a successful conclusion. My delegation shares the view that the establishment of the Energy Committee 2 years ago under the framework of ESCAP contributed to enhancing the energy connectivity development in our region. Moreover, it provided us with an important avenue to discuss and implement actions to overcome the key challenges facing the achievement of the SDG 7. Mr. Chair, as a landlocked developing country, Mongolia attaches particular importance to taking active part in regional and multilateral economic cooperation mechanism. Therefore, we have viewed that developing regional cooperation and energy connectivity holds an important key in improving the quality of life and strengthening national economies, which in turn would lead to successful implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals, including the SDG 7. The State Great Khural Parliament of Mongolia adopted Mongolia's Sustainable Development Vision 2030 in 2016 on the basis of the Agenda 2030. Under this vision, Mongolia set goals to create a competitive, multi-pillar, accessible economy, improve living conditions of the population by creating employment opportunities, as well as to preserve sustainable environment, reduce climate change impacts, and make other adaptations in accordance with the development features of the country. Furthermore, the Parliament of Mongolia approved the State Policy on Energy for 2015 to 2030, which has identified the development of the regional energy cooperation as one of its 6 strategic goals, besides ensuring reliable supply, energy efficiency, and development of renewable energy. Today, Mongolia is one of the world's top users of renewable energy. A third of Mongolia's population solely rely on solar energy as its primary source of electricity. Solar, wind, and hydropower account for close to 20% of the country's electricity generation capacity. In accordance with the State Policy on Energy, we aim to increase the use of renewable energy up to 20% by 2020 and up to 30% by 2030. Mr. Chair, the government of Mongolia stands for promoting mutually beneficial cooperation with neighboring and regional countries in the field of energy. We consider it important to launch a policy dialogue channel that would enable regional countries to utilize the potentials of the regional energy cooperation and lay foundations for reducing non-physical barriers on energy trade and connectivity. As a country abundant with natural resources, we have great potentials to gain economic benefits by exporting clean energy sources to larger energy consuming markets and thus secure the stable energy supply sources in the region. The government of Mongolia and the Asian Development Bank have jointly made a study to assess the viability of Mongolia to interconnect with its neighbors and export clean power to the customers in the region. According to this comprehensive study, Mongolia can develop and supply up to 200 gigawatt of wind and 1.2 terawatt of solar energy to its neighbors. We have developed a roadmap to supply up to 100 gigawatts of solar and wind energy to customers in China, Japan, Korea, and Russia by 2036. Similar to the Mongolian study, multiple studies have been done over the past years by the national power utility companies in the region. Mr. Chair, taking this opportunity, I wish to specifically underline the significance of the Mongolian President's initiative on establishing a regional organization to set up the Northeast Asian Common Electricity Market. This common energy market can serve as the best solution for Northeast Asian countries to optimally manage their energy production, consumption, and peak hour demand. The project is in line with the Sustainable Development Goals to increase the production of renewable energy and to promote low carbon emission. The Northeast Asian Common Electricity Market would help to boost the economies in the region, and most importantly, it would enable the people of the participating countries to have access to affordable and accessible energy. In this connection, I wish to extend our gratitude to the ESCAP for its support of Mongolia's initiative by co-hosting a plenary session on Northeast Asia Regional Energy Cooperation as part of the 6th International Conference of Ulaanbaatar Dialogue on Northeast Asian Security held last June in Mongolia. The International Committee has put massive effort and commitment into transition to sustainable energy systems within the framework of the Paris Agreement and the Sustainable Development Goals. Having vast clean energy resources, Mongolia is fully committed to contribute to the international efforts through taking advantage of the latest development in technology and trends in global energy transformation. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, distinguished delegates from Mongolia. I would like to bring to your kind attention, distinguished delegates, that we have a long list of speakers, so I would highly appreciate if you could restrict your deliberation within 5 minutes. Now I would like to invite distinguished delegate from Pakistan. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Chair. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. As we know, access to energy is inextricably linked to sustainable development as it interconnects 3 pillars of sustainable development. It has a profound effect on productivity, economic development, livelihoods, health, education, and food and water security. Hence, it can contribute to reducing inequality and poverty. Pakistan is an energy-deficient country and relies heavily on fossil fuels to generate electricity. Imports account for almost 43% of primary energy in the country, with large quantities of liquefied natural gas imported to bridge the supply-demand gap. Energy prices are steadily increasing, creating significant affordability concerns. Whether it's cross-cutting links with other global goals, SDG 7 is among the most important goals for Pakistan. To accelerate progress on SDG 7, Pakistan has invested heavily in overcoming energy shortages, increasing energy generation, and expanding access to electricity. Over the past 10 years, access to electricity increased by 8 percentage points. The proportion of the population who rely on clean fuels and technologies has risen by 11 percentage points in the same period. Pakistan is blessed with a high potential of renewable energy resources. We are in the process of installing hydroelectric, wind, and solar projects to harness this potential. At present, the share of renewable energy stands at 4% in the national energy mix. Efforts are underway to increase the share for renewables in Pakistan energy supply mix to 20% by 2025 and 30% by 2030. Parliament has passed National Energy Efficiency and Conservation Act 2016 and Pakistan Council of Renewable Energy Technologies Act 2018. An especially notable initiative was the construction and operationalization of the Quaid-e-Azam Solar Park, Pakistan's first utility-scale on-grid solar power plant of 1,000 megawatts. Several other solar plants have also been set up, and many rural areas have been provided with small-scale solar panels system to provide basic electricity for local households. The Alternative Energy Development Board has supported the private sector installation of several renewable energy plants, including wind and solar power plants. These efforts have enabled Pakistan to rise through the ranks of countries considered attractive for renewable energy investment from 38th in 2016 to 26th in 2018. Improving energy efficiency and conservation are among Pakistan's top priorities. To this end, a National Energy Efficiency and Conservation Authority has been established to identify energy efficiency and conservation opportunities. Initiatives on renewable energy focus on affordable energy. The National Parliament took major steps towards adopting clean energy when the Parliament building was turned into a sustainable green building in 2016. The Green Parliament of Pakistan has the distinction of being world's first largest solar-powered legislative building. In addition to reducing air pollution, it sets the standard for other government departments and private buildings. I thank you.
Thank you, distinguished delegates from Pakistan, for a very timely completion of your statement. Now I would request the distinguished delegates from Kazakhstan. The floor is yours, please.
Уважаемый председатель, уважаемый господин Хон Пен Лю, уважаемые делегаты, разрешите приветствовать вас на второй сессии Комитета по устойчивой энергетике. Данная сессия становится уникальной площадкой, где обсуждаются будущее энергетики, есть возможность обменяться опытом, наладить деловое общение. Весь мир пребывает в состоянии трансформации. Тренды указывают на качественные изменения спроса на энергоносители, географию потребления, инфраструктуру для поставок углеводородных ресурсов, развитие возобновляемой энергетики. Активно нарастают угрозы, связанные с изменением климата, на который в не меньшей мере оказывает негативное воздействие деятельность энергетических предприятий. Тенденции укрепляют нашу уверенность в необходимости поиска баланса и путей достижения целей устойчивого развития. Казахстан в этом году отмечает 120-летие со дня, 120 лет с момента начала добычи первой нефти. И за многие годы нефть в Казахстане прошла непростой путь в развитии. В результате именно нефтегазовый комплекс стал фундаментом роста экономики и благополучия казахстанцев. Топливно-энергетический комплекс представляет собой значительный потенциал по энергоресурсам. И сегодня Казахстан входит в топ-15 стран по добыче нефти, в топ-10 стран по добыче угля и также является мировым лидером по добыче и поставкам урана. Для энергетики Казахстана достижение количественных и качественных показателей возможно только через инновации. Инновационный потенциал заложен в программе «Цифровой Казахстан». И только за 3 года с 2019 по 2021 в отрасли будут реализованы проекты на сумму свыше 34 миллиардов тенге, что в эквиваленте 90 миллионов долларов. Цифровизация успешно внедряет режим онлайн-работы на наших заводах. Автоматизация позволит обеспечить надежность оборудования, увеличить межремонтный период эксплуатации. Так, ладно, я сокращу свое время, так как времени мало. Перейду на ЦУР. В соответствии с ЦУР-7 Казахстан планомерно развивает сектор возобновляемой энергетики в части доведения доли возобновляемой энергии в энергобалансе страны до 3% в 2020 году и до 50% в 2050 году с учетом альтернативной энергетики. В качестве одного из векторов развития энергетического комплекса в течение последних лет позиционируются возобновляемые источники энергии Казахстаном. Сектор ВИА является одним из молодых секторов зеленой экономики в Казахстане. Действующая система господдержки развития ВИА закреплена в законодательстве Республики Казахстан с 2009 года. Механизм фиксированных тарифов на начальном этапе развития ВИА позволил быстро запустить рынок ВИА и осуществить реализацию следующих видов ВИА. Это ветровая, солнечная, малая гидроэнергетика, то есть станции менее 35 мегаватт для производства солнечной электрической энергии. Инновационный потенциал возобновляемой энергетики активно поддерживается правительством Республики Казахстан. Благодаря созданным условиям возобновляемая энергетика устойчиво растет. За последние 5 лет количество объектов ВИА выросло более чем в 2 раза, с 35 в 2014 году и до 78 на сегодняшний день. До конца года суммарная мощность объектов ВИА увеличится еще больше с 730 до 967 мегаватт. Это у нас 85 объектов. Учитывая важность реализации проектов БИОС с точки зрения управления отходами в стране, Министерством совместно с заинтересованными сторонами проводится работа по пересмотру механизма их государственной поддержки. В 2020 году количество объектов ВИА планируется довести до 95 и в 2021 до 119, то есть это у нас 2096 мегаватт в планах. А к 2025 году стоит цифра 2950 мегаватт. Таковы планы энергетики Казахстана на будущее. Мы уверены в успешной реализации проектов. Для этого Казахстан располагает всеми ресурсами и профессиональными кадрами. Это позволит приблизить энергетику Казахстана к устойчивой модели. Здесь мы видим большие возможности и поддержим реализацию высокотехнологических инвестиционных проектов. Несмотря на то, что в Казахстане, где с учетом сырьевой экономической направленности ископаемое топливо еще долгое время будет оставаться частью энергетики, принята концепция по переходу к зеленой экономике, ратифицировано Парижское климатическое соглашение, инициирована и реализуется программа партнерства «Зеленый мост», открыт Международный центр зеленых технологий под эгидой ООН. Все концепции, программы, разработанные и принятые в стране в области устойчивого развития, нацелены на достижение нового качества жизни, инновационного развития, модернизацию экономики, обеспечение национальной безопасности, сбалансированное региональное развитие и построение эффективного государства. Казахстан также активно участвует в международном диалоге по развитию технологий, укреплению энергетической политики, а также по изучению накопленного опыта с целью обмена передовыми практиками. Правительством проведена работа по повышению статуса Республики Казахстан в Комитете ОСР по политике в области окружающей среды. В рамках рабочей группы «Планета» продолжается работа по имплементации целей устойчивого развития. В целях дальнейшей реализации программы партнерства «Зеленый мост» исполняется план мероприятий, наша дорожная карта по дальнейшему продвижению «Зеленого моста» на период 18-20 годы. По итогам 2018 года участниками хартии по программе партнерства «Зеленый мост» являются 16 стран: Казахстан, Россия, Кыргызстан, Грузия, Германия, Монголия, Беларусь, Черногория, Латвийская республика, Албания, Финляндия, Венгрия, Болгария, Швеция, Испания, Польша, а также 16 неправительственных организаций. Также, как я упомянула выше, создан Международный центр зеленых технологий и инвестиционных проектов. Задача этого центра – формировать реестр зеленых технологий, поиск иностранных партнеров по их трансферту и реализации проектов в Казахстане, осуществлять сотрудничество со странами Центральной Азии, с международными организациями по совершенствованию механизмов внедрения наилучших доступных технологий. Вместе с тем Казахстан ставит перед собой следующие задачи на 2019 год. Это у нас мероприятия по реализации целей устойчивого развития, реализация программы содействия ускоренному переходу Казахстана к зеленой экономике путем продвижения технологий и лучших практик развития бизнеса и инвестиций, реализация плана мероприятий по дальнейшему продвижению программы партнерства «Зеленый мост» на период 18-20 годы. У нас в стране в рамках нового экологического кодекса планируется внести изменения по вопросам государственного регулирования парниковых газов, озоноразрушающих веществ и адаптации к изменению климата. Внести изменения и дополнения в национальный план распределения квот на выбросы парниковых.
Could you please conclude, please?
Окей. И также хотелось бы мне в заключение сказать, что на 74-м заседании Генеральной Ассамблеи ООН в Нью-Йорке на саммите по устойчивому развитию нашим президентом была выдвинута инициатива по созданию регионального центра ООН ПАЦУР в Казахстане, что в свою очередь еще раз демонстрирует приверженность нашей страны в развитии зеленой экономики. Казахстан готов взаимодействовать со всеми ведущими странами и компаниями, для которых будущее источников энергии и достижение устойчивого развития имеет большое значение. Желаю всем участникам и гостям плодотворной работы. Благодарю за внимание.
Thank you, delegate from Kazakhstan. Now let me invite distinguished delegate from Nepal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the second opportunity. As I have delivered the paper from Nepal already, so I'm not going to repeat the same thing again. But what I would like to do is I would like to put some of the challenges that we are facing in the implementation of SDG 7. Those challenges, let me read out. We are the significant portion of the population is without access to modern energy services till now. Only 88% population has access to electricity, out of which 78% has connected to the national grid and remaining are in off-grid. Although Nepal has huge potential for hydropower development, the generation of electricity is low. The installed capacity of the country is only 1,250 megawatt till today, including thermal and other renewables. There are issues of reliable and qualitative supply due to the old transmission and distribution system and technology. Development of more hydropower projects requires more investment. Most of the hydropower plants are run-of-the-river type, and therefore the demand and supply gap remains there in the system, particularly in the dry season. Time overrun and cost overrun of the projects are prevalent. It is difficult to provide grid connections to the people living in the scattered settlements in the remote areas, particularly in the high Himalayan regions. Implementation of transmission line projects are facing difficulty to secure land required for them. Majority of the population are still using firewood for cooking in a traditional way. So let me put up some of the measures that we are taking to address these challenges. First of all, as a policy intervention, Electricity Regulatory Commission Act 2018 has been approved by the Parliament, and Electricity Regulatory Commission ERC is functional now. National Electricity Efficiency Strategy 2018 has been approved by the Government of Nepal in November 2018. Water Resources Policy, Water Resources Act, Electricity Act, Renewable Energy Promotion Act, and Energy Efficiency and Conservation Act are being drafted. Approach paper of the 15th five-year plan has incorporated adequate provisions to address the issues of energy sector. Present status and future roadmap of energy, water resources and irrigation sector 2018 that we call as white paper issued by Honorable Minister of Ministry of Energy, Water Resources and Irrigation has undertaken in-depth review of the energy sector and has proposed future roadmap for the overall development of the sector. And let me highlight some of the mainstreaming, how we are mainstreaming the global target into the national policies, plans and strategies. First of all, Government of Nepal approved Sustainable Development Goal, Status and Roadmap 2016-2030. Nepal's planned policies and programs are aligned with the SDGs. The current five-year plan has clearly defined vision, goal, objective, strategies, and working policies. We are currently preparing a result matrix with SDGs for 5 years. The plan consists of 5 hydropower-related strategies and 22 working policies. In the alternative energy sector, we have set 5 strategies and 15 working policies. Those strategies and working policies will help in achieving SDG 7. The periodic plan clearly mentions strategies to increase investment in hydropower development, including the transmission and distribution of electricity, encourages use of renewable energy, and improve energy security and institutional reform. So some of the measures to effectively follow up the achievement in SDG 7 are as follow. A high-level steering committee has been formed under the chairmanship of Right Honorable Prime Minister. Under this committee, a coordination committee and 8 thematic committees have been constituted. The later 2 committees are being led by National Planning Commission. Currently, the thematic committees are working to analyze and revise some local indicators in consultation and coordination with the concerned ministries and other related stakeholders. annual action plans are formulated such that the evaluation and monitoring of the programs relating to SDG 7 are covered. So this much from my side. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, distinguished delegate from Nepal. Now I would like to invite distinguished delegates from Azerbaijan. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Distinguished delegates, first of all, I would like to greet participants and the ESCAP, organizer of this session. I believe that today's meeting is another good opportunity for exchange of views on development strategies in the field of energy and achievements on SDG 7. Having joined the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, Azerbaijan is currently continuing and intensifying its efforts to align national development strategies with the Sustainable Development Goals by translating the relevant goals and targets into national policies and programs. In order to ensure more effective implementation of SDG 7 and their regional coordination, Azerbaijan, in cooperation with the United Nations Economic Cooperation for Europe, organized the 7th International Forum on Energy for Sustainable Development in 2016 to discuss the means and of implementation of the National Sustainable Development Agenda on energy, share relevant knowledge and experience, and learn best international practices related to SDG 7. As an outcome document, a Baku call for actions was adopted, and on the basis of this, the ministerial declaration was signed in Kazakhstan at the 8th International Forum on Energy for Sustainable Development. And at the high-level political forum organized by the ECOSOC in New York in July of this year, delegation of Azerbaijan presented second voluntary national review of Azerbaijan on implementation of the SDGs, focusing on goals in accordance with the thematic plan of UN, and shared its experience gained. Besides, we plan to come up with our next voluntary national review in 2021 to assess the progress made by Azerbaijan after our previous VNR. We should note with satisfaction that Azerbaijan was first in the region of South Caucasus and among the CIS countries to present the second VNR. SDGs have set global targets for energy development, and we believe that if achieved, they will serve to increase and expand socio-economic benefits while reducing environmental impacts. And it's obvious that the implementation of Paris Agreement will not be possible without considering Goal 7. My country adheres to the principle of affordable, clean and efficient energy for all. Azerbaijan is a country with one of the highest indicators of energy self-sufficiency, and the country's energy security is totally achieved. Azerbaijan is one of those countries which all of the population were provided with access to electricity. The target 7.11 was met totally with the indicator of 100% of electrification achieved. Azerbaijan has, due to different climate zones, not only advantageous opportunities in agriculture, but also in gaining alternative and renewable energy sources with wind, sun, biomass, hydro, and geothermal power sources. My country has huge potential in the development of renewable energy that would be sustainable, reliable, and affordable while securing future economic growth. Therefore, increasing the green sector and broadening alternative resources can make Azerbaijan free from oil and gas and protect the country's environment. Modern society depends on reliable and affordable energy services to function smoothly and to develop equitably. Governments and businesses can accelerate the transition to an affordable, reliable energy systems by investing in renewable energy sources, prioritizing energy efficient practices, and adopting clean energy technologies and infrastructure. In this context, Azerbaijan continuously improves business and regulatory climate, as well as offers numerous opportunities through legal, tax, and financial incentives to advance the deployment of renewables. Today, the share of alternative energy sources in the electricity supply of Azerbaijan is 8.1%. The government of Azerbaijan has expressed ambitious plans to ramp up the share of electricity generated from renewable and alternative energy. Effective and sustainable energy policies are continuously developed by ongoing reforms and are reflected in the country's energy laws, strategies, roadmaps, and plans. Strategic roadmap for the development of public utilities in Azerbaijan defined short-term, mid-term till 2025 and long-term beyond 2025 targets for introducing renewable energy sources and energy efficiency technologies. And according to this strategic plan, our plan is to increase the capacity for generating electricity from wind, solar, and biomass by 420 megawatts. And our goal is to increase the share of renewable in total energy production to 20 and 30% by 2020 and 2030 respectively. The diversification of energy production power at the expense of renewables along with energy security will have a positive impact on our country's commitment to reducing greenhouse gas emissions under the Paris Agreement. The State Agency on Alternative and Renewable Energy Sources of the Republic of Azerbaijan was established by the decree of the President of Azerbaijan in 2013 with the aim of improving the management system in the field of alternative and renewable energy. Azerbaijan 2020 Outlook into the Future Development concept includes provisions on the alternative and renewable energy sector as well. By the presidential decree in May 2019, government was tasked to accelerate the reform process in the energy sector of Azerbaijan, and it envisages the preparation of the long-term development strategy of the energy sector in the Republic of Azerbaijan. The decree provides the base for future policies promoting the wider use of renewable energy sources, creation favorable investment climate in energy sphere, and support private entrepreneurship. Energy Ministry has prepared the National Action Plan on Energy Efficiency of Azerbaijan within the EU for Energy Program, and this paves the way for the preparation of the law on the efficient use of energy resources and energy efficiency. The cooperation in the framework of the EU for Energy Program aims to support the EU's Eastern Partnership countries with reforming their energy markets and development of sustainable energy policy. The EU-funded program has a budget of 21 million euros and will run until 2020. As we embark upon a path of implementing the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, we need to regularly test ourselves to identify the extent to which we are delivering on our commitments. Coordinated efforts and shared responsibilities among states backed by adequate resources are essential to secure a sustainable future and ensure that no one is left behind. In conclusion, I would like to wish fruitful deliberations to all colleagues. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, distinguished delegates from Azerbaijan. Now, I would like to, it's my pleasure to invite the distinguished delegates from China, who is the vice chair of this bureau as well, Mr. An. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just now, the panelists and the speakers have given us excellent speeches about SDG 7. I would like to take this opportunity to share with you Chinese progress towards SDG 7. The Chinese government was among the first to adopt and release the country's national plan on implementation of 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. In the field of energy, we also attach great importance to sustainable development. Our energy strategy clearly sets out a green and low carbon direction, with the medium and long-term targets being increasing the share of non-fossil fuels in the total primary energy consumption to 15% by 2020 and 20% by 2030, while reaching carbon emission peak around 2030 and also as early as possible. The targets also include reaching the energy intensity, reducing the energy intensity by 40% to 45% by 2020. And now we have realized the target ahead of 2 years. And we also to reduce the energy intensity by 60 to 65% by 2030 compared to 2005. As the world's largest energy producer and the largest energy consumer, China is also the largest renewable energy developer. China is actively engaging in the global energy transition. By the end of 2018, China's total installed capacity of renewable energy is about 720 gigawatt, while the wind power is 180 gigawatt. The solar power is 170 gigawatt, respectively. Overall, non-fossil fuel accounts for about 40% of China's total installed capacity and 30% of its power generation. According to our estimation, clean energy will become the major part of the incremental energy supply by 2035 and become the main fuel supply by 2050. In the meantime, we give high priority to energy access. China has been constantly investing in energy infrastructure that improve the living of people, especially of those underdeveloped. By the end of 2015, China has achieved fully electrification. The aspiration of electricity for all has been translated into reality. China is also willing to share experiences and technologies on implementing energy access. We have enhanced our cooperation with other countries within the international mechanisms, such as G20, APEC, and etc. Only within the G20 framework, 3 voluntary action plans for energy access have been released with the concerted efforts of all G20 members, especially the chairing nations such as Turkey, Argentina, and China. And to achieve the SDG 7 goals, China would like to share the common task with our stakeholders, and we are ready to work with UN ESCAP and the international communities and contribute a fair share to the building of a sustainable energy system. Finally, wish the second session of the Committee on Energy a great success. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Excellency Mr. An. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to invite now the distinguished delegates from Russian Federation, Mr. Aliyev, the Vice Chair. Okay, from Russian Federation. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Congratulations on your elections, and I would like to share some maybe less formal observations about the today's topic. First, I think it's common agreement that the transition in energy should go in accordance with national circumstances and the situation in each country, taking into account its advantages and disadvantages. There is no one-size-fits-all solution in this regard. We strongly believe that when we talk about SDG, we should talk about SDG in its complexity and have a holistic approach, not to substitute only one particular indicator or one particular aspect with the holistic approach to the issue. I'm talking about the share of renewables, etc. All energy sources must be utilized effectively to achieve SDG 7, and of course we need to lessen the environmental footprint of energy. And Russia is doing its best in this regard by adopting, for example, Paris Agreement and relevant plans. So first, the essence is access. For many countries, still an issue to satisfy the current demand. But if we look ahead, we should think how we would satisfy growing demand for energy in the region. So in our view, as I mentioned, all sources must be utilized effectively. And we are very thankful for the Secretariat for organizing yesterday's seminar on the use of gas, which is one of the leading means to satisfy growing demands in the region. Russia is also actively developing nuclear, and we are planning to continue this trend. We're now constructing about 30 reactors for nearly 50 gigawatts of power in 12 countries, and it's also a contribution to universal access. And we shouldn't forget about coal. Whatever we say, but for the foreseeable future, coal will be playing a very important role in energy mix. So the task is to find ways to utilize coal in accordance with the highest existing technological standards and develop technologies for more effective and cleaner use of coal. Some of the delegates touch the issue of affordability. It's also a question for Russia. When we are talking about transition, we should bear in mind the total cost of for example, introduction of renewables. If we are going to connect renewables with the grid, significant money are needed to overcome intermittency of renewables, and this cost should also be put into equation. In the SDG targets, there is a reference to infrastructure, and Russia is constructing quite a number of facilities to expand the channels for supply of energy outside of Russian territory, because we have a surplus. And we also should not forget cooperation in research and development, and means as a major means to increase the efficiency and to lessen the environmental footprint of energy sector. From our part, we are developing a research and development platform in BRICS. We are advocating a new gas research institute within the framework of gas exporting countries forum. We were very pleased to learn yesterday at the seminar about the network, R&D network in Asia Pacific. We are planning to actively participate in it. So it would, in our view, this should be the main avenue for advancing SDG 7. And a brief comment to our intervention of our Mongolian colleague. You know, in our view, energy sector should be developed primarily in accordance with economic considerations and economic efficiency. And when we hear very good plans for connectivity and for export of energy, we should look into economic realities. In Russia, we have about 5 gigawatts of surplus of energy generation capacities in the Far East. So I have some doubts that we would be economically in a position to import amounts of energy produced in our neighboring Mongolia, bearing in mind the current existing surplus. And if we look around to the realities of the region, Japanese market is closed, Korea has its own problems. So the point is that we should take into account economic feasibility when we talk about both renewables and all sorts of interconnection arrangements. Bear in mind economic realities as well as political realities. Thank you.
Thank you, distinguished delegates from Russian Federation. Having no other delegates from member states, is there any? Okay, I can see Japan has expressed interest. I request the delegation from Japan to. Okay, I think as I can see Japan, you give your deliberation, then we'll.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for giving me the floor. Yes, sorry. Thank you. Japan, as the chair of the Osaka G20 Summit, during this year, took a leading role in furthering international discussion on ways and means to strengthen energy access and development assistance in energy sector in developing countries, with emphasis on the role of innovation in relation to energy and climate change. It will continue to do so with our countries and partners in this regard. Mr. Chair, it is important to improve electric power connectivity by increasing on-grid power generation investment, both from public and private sources. Japan supports financing high-quality energy infrastructure development through JBIC facilities and among others. It is also important to promote technological development in energy sector. Japan can provide options for clean energy development, including geothermal power generation and hydronic technology. It can also support improved distributed energy system, such as off-grid and mini-grid power generation, to enhance accessibility and sustainability for all. For example, JICA supported a startup company from Japan to begin LED lantern rental service in Tanzania as innovative power supply solution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, distinguished delegates from Japan. Now I would invite distinguished delegates from Tuvalu. Floor is yours, please.
Chair, distinguished Chair, Director of the Energy Division of ESCAP, distinguished heads of delegations and your fellow delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Let me first of all again congratulate you for assuming the chairmanship of this important gathering. I must also thank the committee for the confidence in selecting Tuvalu to represent the Pacific states as one of its selected vice chairs for this meeting. I would like also to express our appreciation to the tireless efforts by the ESCAP staff for making arrangements for our travels to this important meeting and the wonderful hospitality and support that we have been provided. At the recent 50th Pacific Island Forum Leaders Meeting that was held in Tuvalu, chaired by Tuvalu in August this year, the Pacific Island leaders reaffirmed that climate change is the single greatest threat to the livelihoods, security and well-being of the peoples of the Pacific, and our commitments to progress the implementation of the Paris Agreement. We need to move beyond these setting targets and ambitions, and this fits well with the theme of the recently concluded International Forum on Energy for Sustainable Development yesterday. We need to act now. Tuvalu reaffirmed in that forum meeting that the Pacific can and must show global leadership in our fight against climate change by switching to renewable energy and set and advance progress in our set energy targets. The recently concluded Pacific Regional Energy and Transport Ministers meeting that took place in Samoa last month further supported the need for renewed efforts in the energy sector of Pacific Island states through adopting the 2050 strategy for the Blue Pacific, which stressed the Pacific region's desire to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all, with particular reference to the SDG 7 in ensuring access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. This is with the underlying aim of building the resilience of the peoples of the Pacific from the impacts of climate change. As chair for the Forum Leaders meeting, Tuvalu will continue to stress the need to emphasize achieving the set energy targets of the Pacific Island countries as we battle climate change. Energy security for the small island states of the Pacific is a cornerstone of the SID's accelerated modalities of action, Samoa Pathway, which seeks to address SDG 7 through the mechanisms of the framework of Pacific regionalism in order to achieve and enhance Blue Pacific. Tuvalu has set bold and ambitious target of generating electricity with 100% renewable energy by 2025, and it has also set a target of increasing energy efficiency by 2030 on Funafuti, the capital. Funafuti, Tuvalu has also achieved 100% in energy access several years ago, and we need to maintain this. Our national determined contributions being submitted to the UNFCCC underscores the bold ambitions set forth within the energy sector of going 100% renewable energy by 2030. To achieve these targets, Tuvalu has carried out several projects under its master plan and energy policies. And through these projects are being implemented and monitored with timely reviews of their impacts and to identify solutions to accelerate achieving them. Tuvalu has also recently carried out its national dialogue on advancing Tuvalu's energy and greenhouse gas mitigation targets with the support of the Pacific Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency, headed by our colleague who actually was facilitating earlier, Solomon Fifita. Following those key recommendations and findings were highlighted as essential in advancing the energy security targets for Tuvalu. Some important takeaways from the dialogue underscores the common issues Tuvalu and likewise other Pacific Island countries face, and they continue to face the challenges in renewable energy efforts on issues related to technology, human capacity, financing, and climate change and energy planning, with matching them to our internal budgetary processes. Land issues also continue, due to our smallness, continue to hinder installation efforts of solar PVs on the islands. Excellencies, energy and energy security, energy transformation against climate change for small island countries like Tuvalu is intergenerational. It must be inclusive, and to achieve our energy and mitigation targets faster, it requires a whole-of-sector approach through consultative discussions, the private sector's involvement, civil society, the village council, including women and religious groups, likewise the politicians and the government officials. We must all act together in a cohesive manner that promotes sustainable development, accelerate the achievement of our energy targets and greenhouse gas emission targets. Tuvalu highly commends the commitment and support by its development partners and multilateral agency in the energy sector this far, and we strongly call for continued support. Tuvalu has progressed in its RE portfolio with its current achievement of 25% in renewable energy penetration, and it aims to achieve this 100% by 2030. It aims to include rooftop gridded connected solar installations with policy reviews to be undertaken to support this. Prepaid meter installation will also be implemented, and this will enhance energy efficiency and reduce losses. Tuvalu has also established two funds, the Low Carbon Fund and the Energy Efficiency Revolving Fund, nationally to support and uptake the energy efficiency appliances in the country. Reviews are also being undertaken to allow greater flexibility and lower rates for individuals to maximize involvement of individuals in this initiative. Pursuing to advance towards energy and greenhouse emission targets has in itself profound opportunities, as it can create business, employment opportunity, and investment opportunities as well for our locals, reduce oil imports, and can raise the profile of Tuvalu's carbon footprint. Chair, I wish therefore with these comments reiterate Tuvalu's support to the the committee and its member states, with the collaboration of ESCAP and likewise our other partners in the energy sector, in our efforts to accelerate progress in our member countries' energy sector targets as we draw closer to 2030. Stepping up in our efforts is crucial, for together we can. Thank you. Hafdailas.
Thank you, distinguished delegates from Tuvalu. I think no one can from the floor, from the member states. So we can move on to the intergovernmental organization. I can see one name, International Renewable Energy Association. I would like to invite you for your deliberations. Floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, on behalf of IRENA, I wish to thank our colleagues from ESCAP for the invitation to the second session of Committee on Energy and the presented opportunity to address you today. As we all know, one of the groundbreaking features of the 2030 Development Agenda is SDG 7, the first ever global goal on energy. It is the key for realization of several other SDGs, such as SDG 8 on decent work and economic growth, and SDG 13 on climate action. In fact, SDG 7 is the key to the achievement of almost all the SDGs. Without energy, there is simply no development. And without sustainable energy, there is no future for our planet, given the climate urgency we are witnessing as evidenced by the IPCC over the last several years. Fortunately, we are seeing an unprecedented growth in renewable energy. It is driven by enabling policies, declining costs, and innovation. Renewables have been outpacing capacity additions over conventional energy sources for the last several years in a row, and more than 170 gigawatt of renewables were added in the last year alone, constituting 2/3 of all new capacity additions. The cost of renewable energy technologies continue to decline to record lows. The cost of electricity from solar PV and onshore wind decreased by 13% just last year. And as per our latest estimate, by next year, solar PV and onshore wind will be less expensive source of new electricity than the cheapest fossil fuel alternative. These are strong signals to policymakers and investors that renewable energy is now the preferred option for new power generation capacity around the world. But it is increasingly clear that the deployment of renewables is not only about energy supply, it is also about their immense socioeconomic benefits. For instance, our latest jobs review shows an increase of 700,000 jobs in 2018 alone, bringing the number of renewable energy jobs to 11 million worldwide. However, to meet the goals set out in the 2030 Agenda and the Paris Agreement, the energy transition must have been much faster. IRENA's analysis shows that the renewable energy and energy efficiency can deliver 90% of the energy-related emissions reductions required to keep global warming below 2 degrees C. But for this to occur, deployment of renewables has to accelerate sixfold. To achieve this, we need to further strengthen policy framework to unlock large-scale investment in renewables. Public-private partnerships should be strengthened, with public institutions helping mobilize private capital. More emphasis should be placed on offering risk mitigation instruments and providing technical assistance to create enabling environments. Distinguished delegates, regional cooperation is a key element to boost efficiencies and to bring about economies of scale in deployment of RE technologies, thanks to the larger electricity and technology market. Though higher penetration of renewables, through higher penetration of renewables, countries can take advantage of the associated socioeconomic benefits, such as health improvements, job creation, improved gender balance, GDP growth, and welfare. IRENA has worked to promote regional cooperation from its outset and now offers tailored regional activities worldwide. Leveraging in its wide global membership, strong engagement of relevant ministries, and considerable convening power, IRENA has closely worked with member countries and provides a platform for collaboration and knowledge exchange. We will continue to help in strengthening peer-to-peer collaboration, facilitate partnerships in the Asia-Pacific region, and amplify impact through coordinated action with other international organizations. IRENA will also foster its role as a facilitator to match the plan of a member state with various multilateral institutions, development banks, private companies, investors, and other relevant stakeholders. Moving forward, the agency will place greater focus on action on the ground. We will be more actively engaged in efforts to scale up renewable energy investment, working closely with the private sector and multilateral financial institutions. Ladies and gentlemen, the magnitude of challenge is immense, and we will only succeed if we join forces. This is why strengthening IRENA's partnership with other international organizations, and in particular with the United Nations, is critical. Putting words into action, we recently signed an agreement with the United Nations Department for Economic and Social Affairs that includes strengthening climate action and implementation of SDG as a priority. We are also delighted to have launched a climate investment platform at the Climate Summit in New York, together with GCF, UNDP, and SE4All, that provides an integrated and streamlined support to accelerate clean energy investments. We are working with the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR, on supply of renewable energy in refugee settings, and with the World Health Organization on electrification of rural health facilities. These partnerships and collaborations are also contributing to operationalize the interlinkages between SDG 7 and other SDGs, and to strengthen global efforts to tackle climate change. Regional high-level meetings, such as this session of the Committee on Energy, are critical platforms for enhancing cooperation and providing strong impetus to collaboration efforts. As always, IRENA remains committed to working closely with ESCAP and other partners to support the transition towards a more sustainable energy future. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, distinguished representative from IRENA. With this, we have heard from 10 distinguished delegates of member states and one from IRENA. Now, in order to summarize this panel discussions and all the statements, I would like to invite Mr. Hongpeng to give a brief summary of this session.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I think we had a very rich discussion with the panelists and also with the statement from different member countries. I cannot summarize all of this, but I take a few key points from the discussion this morning. And then we will record all these details in the report. We will submit for your review at the end of this meeting. So I can see first, this region has remarkable progress for SDG implementation. In particular, the member countries, most of the countries have already developed a clear national target for renewable energy, for energy access, and also for energy efficiency. With this clear target, there's also legislations and acts, even presidential decrees, also developed to support the implementation to achieve this national target. At the same time, this national target also align with the SDG 7 and the Paris Agreement. I think the more important, there are actual kind of implementation plans focused on technology innovation and also focus on the mechanism to support, to achieve this target. The mechanism also touched on the economic side, like the subsidies, the investment, and also how to improve the existing system to better address this kind of demand. And if you see the national strategy aligned with this SDG 7 and the Paris Agreement, which also emphasized more on energy transition and low carbon development. At the same time, cooperation, international cooperation, regional cooperation, which was also emphasized, focus on research and development, and also focus on the challenges and how to address the challenges through this kind of collaboration. But we still recognize there's great challenges. I think countries also mentioned about the challenges for the capacity of the implementation of this target. At the same time, also the latest technology and the financing, how to mobilize this kind of financing to support. What is the role of the private sector? At the same time, to emphasize how this national target integrated the global target with the national target. I really think through this discussion that gives us more clear idea, and we already made a great progress for implementation of SDG 7 as the agenda we discussed, but at the same time there's a great challenge we have to address and we have to find a solution. Otherwise we are off track currently. But if without the 2 or 3 times or even more greater efforts, we cannot achieve the SDG 7 by end of 2030. So we need a joint efforts. We need more regional collaboration and international cooperation, and to achieve this target. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Hongpeng. I hope that we'll have your detailed summary in the report. Thank you all, the panelists, and also the statement of the member states for your excellent deliberations. So we are very close to this agenda item, and for the purpose of the report, I request the Secretariat to duly reflect these points in the draft report in the afternoon of Friday. And before I close this agenda item, I think the MC has got some announcement. May I request the MC?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We now conclude our morning session and we will break for lunch. Catering outlets at the United Nations Conference Center include international cafeteria and coffee corners on level 1 and level 2. After lunch, we will move to the next agenda item under the title Implementation of the Outcomes of the Second Asian and Pacific Energy Forum that will start at 2 p.m. in this conference room. For more information, kindly see the program on our touch screens, which are available in front of the conference rooms and escalators. For participants entitled to daily subsistence allowance, kindly bring the required documents to the DSA payment counter near the conference room 4 on level 1 from 12:30 till 2 p.m. All delegates are invited to the side event, Government Business Dialogue on Energy Transition, organized in partnership with the Smart Energy Transformation Asia, that will take place from 9:30 to 11:30 on the 11th of October at BITEC. Please register to get free access to this event with Secretariat staff at the same counter with DSA during the lunch break. All delegates are also invited to the exhibition from UN offices and our partner agencies under the theme Good Practices for Advancing Energy Transition and Implementation of SDG 7 to achieve the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the Paris Agreement. The exhibition is located on the ground floor and first floor. Thank you for your attention.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, with your permission, I just want to add up a little bit more information for the site event on Friday morning. As MC just mentioned, this will be a joint site event with Smart Energy Transformation Asia, which is organized with the support of Thai government and Ministry of Energy in the Bangkok International Exhibition Center, which actually is not in this venue, but we will provide transportation from this conference center, I think departure at 8 o'clock Friday morning, and to the BITEC, the exhibition center, to organize this site event for government business dialogue. At the same time, you will have a chance to visit a different kind of smart energy transformation technology at this exhibition center, which is one of the prestigious exhibition in this region for smart energy. And then after lunch in the BITEC, in the International Exhibition Center, the transport will provide it to you to come back to this conference center for adoption of the report. I think the departure from the BITEC will announce it on that day at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So we leave at 8 o'clock from here, and we come back from there 1 o'clock. Within this period, that's from 10 or 9:45, we have the site event there, and for 1.5 hours. Then we leave for the lunch break and the exhibition visit. Come back at 1 o'clock. We hopefully this will provide a little bit, different kind of taste like we usually do this intergovernmental meeting, and also provide you with the opportunity to see the latest energy technology and the smart energy technology. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So the meeting is adjourned and we'll resume at 2 p.m.